Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro Revenge Story. After my wife and I got married in April 2024, we decided that we should both get on the same phone plan. We went down to the AT&T store and met with a rep named Marcus, who assured us we'd both be on an unlimited plan for $70 a month all in, including taxes and fees. "Are you sure that's the total price? No hidden fees?" I asked, leaning forward across the counter. "Absolutely," Marcus replied with a confident smile. $70 flat, taxes and fees included. It's our new simplified billing structure. I was very specific about getting the all-in price for the service. It seemed like a decent deal, so we signed up. 2 days later, I logged into the website and saw that there was already a bill for $139. I immediately called up a rep to see what was going on. "I'm looking at my account and seeing a bill for $139, I said. "Your colleague Marcus told us it would be $70 all in." The customer service rep, who identified herself as Vanessa, sighed slightly. "Between the activation fees, taxes, and surcharges, the bill is correct, sir. But we were specifically told $70 total, including all fees and taxes." "I'm sorry about the confusion, but that's not our pricing structure," Vanessa replied flatly. "The base plan is $70, but there are always additional fees." I told her what the salesperson told me, and she basically told me to pound sand. I promptly told her I wanted to cancel the service and wanted the $139 waived. "We can certainly cancel your service," she said, her voice taking on a practiced customer service tone, "but we cannot waive the bill. Also, if you cancel immediately, you and your wife will lose your phone numbers." They said they could cancel the service but would not waive the bill. They also told me if I canceled immediately, my wife and I would lose our phone numbers, which is true. So I figured since I already have to pay for the month and I don't want to lose my phone number, I will just get a new carrier and cancel when I'm ready. So I did my research and found Visible, which is excellent, and we made the switch. I called back to AT&T and informed them that we had switched carriers and wanted to cancel the service. I again asked for a refund. "I understand you've now had the service for 4 days, the rep named Tyler stated. "According to our terms, you're not entitled to a refund." "What? The first person I talked to on day 2 never mentioned that?" "It's all in the fine print of your contract," Tyler replied. "You have 3 days to cancel for a full refund." I was now fuming because the first CSR that I talked to on day 2 denied me a refund if I canceled. "This is ridiculous. I need to speak with a supervisor," I said, trying to keep my voice level. I asked for the next level of CSR and they sent me to a customer care and retention person. I explained the entire fiasco to him and how I felt that I had now been lied to twice by AT&T reps, sales rep and first CSR. "Man, I am really sorry about all this," said the retention specialist Dave. "This isn't how we're supposed to treat customers. Let me take care of this for you and completely waive the bill." He was a really cool guy and apologized and said he'd take care of it and would completely waive the bill. I was very thankful and hung up thinking that this was finally resolved. Fast forward a month to June 2024, and I got an AT&T bill in the mail saying my payment was not received and was now late. I again picked up the phone and called AT&T. I eventually made my way through 2 CSR reps until I got back to the customer care and retention department. This time I did not have the chill dude. Instead, I got a very smarmy woman named Brenda, who said that the bill was due and I'd owe the entire amount. "I understand your frustration," she said in a tone that suggested otherwise. "But our records show this amount is still due. Could you please check the CSR notes? The last representative I spoke with told me he would waive the amount." "I'll look into that for you," she replied. She put me on a 10-minute silent hold and came back and said she'd escalate the matter to her supervisor. She said I should receive an email by the end of the week with a resolution. 2 weeks went by, no response. I called again. This time I got a very nice lady named Samantha that was sympathetic. "I'm so sorry you've been going through this," Samantha said, her voice genuinely concerned. "Let me see what I can do to fix this." She said she'd waive the bill. She came back and told me that she couldn't do anything because the bill had already been sent to collections. "Don't worry," she assured me. "I'll send a letter to collections to have them waive the debt." "Will this go on my credit report?" I asked, starting to feel a knot in my stomach. "No, not at all," Samantha said confidently. "We'll take care of it completely." 6 months later, In December 2024, I got a letter in the mail from Sequium Asset Solutions out of Georgia trying to collect on the $139. I immediately sent them a letter via certified mail demanding that they verify the debt, since it's obviously bad. I heard nothing for 2 months, and then I got an alert that I had a negative mark on my credit. I went in, and sure enough, Sequium had indicated that the amount was in collections. I immediately wrote letters to all 3 bureaus requesting that they remove the remark. A month went by, and every single one of the bureaus removed the mark, thank God. Another 3 months went by, bringing us to April 2025, and then I got a letter from Sunrise Credit Services in NY again trying to collect on the debt. This was truly unbelievable because it appeared that Sequium couldn't verify it, so instead of apologizing and waiving the debt, they just sold it off to another collection agency. I sent another certified letter to Sunrise demanding verification. I got nothing in reply. So far, they have not attempted to put a mark on my credit. That's where this part of the story ends. Who knows what will happen next? I could file a lawsuit, but the filing fee alone would be more than the amount owed. Here's the thing. I am not cash-strapped. I am blessed enough that I could easily pay the $139 without making a dent in my budget. I have lost 5x that amount in hours spent on the phone and writing letters, but I am determined to go to the mat with AT&T on principle alone. This brings us to the revenge stage. You see, in addition to my day job as an attorney, I am an elected city councilman in my town, and when I was going over our monthly expenses, I noticed that we were paying AT&T close to $6,000 a month for our phones, internet, and TV services. We're a fairly small town, so it was pretty obvious that we were being bent over by these clowns and that we could save a ton of money by switching. Have we ever considered other providers? I asked our city manager, Lisa, during our budget meeting. Not in the last 5 years, she replied. We've been with AT&T since before I started. I think we need to look into alternatives, I said, explaining my personal experience. I started working with our city manager and IT director, Ryan, on finding other solutions. We discovered that by switching to various carriers and providers that we could save half. I can't believe we've been paying double what we should be for years, Ryan said, shaking his head as he reviewed the quotes from competitors. This would free up enough in the budget for that shelter position we've been wanting, Lisa noted. I never would have looked that closely into our telecom expense had AT&T not jerked me around. 2 weeks ago, in late July 2025, the resolution to switch was put on our meeting agenda and the council voted to pass it. We decided to completely cut ties with AT&T. All in favor of terminating our contract with AT&T and moving to the new service providers as outlined in the proposal? Asked Mayor Jenkins. A unanimous chorus of aye followed. Motion passes, the mayor announced, banging his gavel. Our city is saving a ton of money, getting better service, and with the money we saved from switching, we were able to hire another part-time animal shelter employee, which we desperately needed. I highly doubt our city would have considered switching if I didn't make such a stink about it. AT&T will end up losing hundreds of thousands over the coming years because of this. I hope it was worth it, AT&T. The next one is an entitled people story. When I bought my place by the lake, I figured I was signing up for the usual. Trash pickup days, maybe a neighborhood watch, don't speed, keep the lawn under control. I didn't expect what came in the welcome packet. It was a little binder with a smiling note on top that said, "We're a community family." Under that was a checklist that stopped me cold. Deliver spare house keys to the HOA office within 7 days. Add spare vessel keys to emergency boat relocation program. Register keys for second residents if owned. Mandatory participation keeps the whole community safe. I read it twice. Then I read the part in the back they called emergency access policy. It said the board had the right to enter any home on 24 hours notice for safety inspections. It said they could move any vehicles and vessels to reduce hazards during storms. It said any refusal could be fined up to $100 per day. I laughed out loud because I thought it was a weird joke. I called the phone number on the sticker in the front. "Hi, I just moved into the place on the corner with the maple tree out front," I said. "Welcome," the voice said. "This is the president. Did you get your packet?" "Yeah," I said. "So, about this keys thing. I'm not handing over keys to my house or my boat. And I don't know what second residence you think you have access to. That's my vacation place, and it's 3 hours away." "You agreed to the rules when you bought," the president said. "We need keys for emergency inspections and for the storm program. Last season, a few unmanned boats broke free. We can't have that again." "My boat is in the city marina," I said. "And I have cameras and an alarm in my house. I'm not giving anyone keys. Not you, not anyone. If there's a fire, the fire department can force entry. That's their job." "You can submit a written refusal, but there are fines," the president said. "There's a hearing calendar. You can appeal to the board." I honestly thought it was going to blow over once they realized I wasn't playing. I wrote an email and said, "No thanks, not consenting, not required by law. Please send me the section of the recorded covenants that gives you this authority." I copied the General Association email in the management company. I thought that was smart. I was wrong. They sent me a violation notice for non-compliance with emergency access policy, $50 per day until I handed over the keys. They also included a form to list my vacation home address and the lockbox code for off-site access. I walked to the end of the street to talk to a neighbor who waved at me when I first looked at the house. I asked if this was normal. "It wasn't like that when we moved in," the neighbor said. "The new board started this stuff 2 years ago. They say it's all for safety. People gave them keys. They did inspections for batteries and smoke detectors. I didn't like it, but I didn't want the fines." "Did they ever come in?" I asked. "They came in when we weren't home," the neighbor said. "They emailed a notice in the morning and let themselves in the afternoon. They said the front porch light was a fire risk because the bulb was the wrong kind. I changed it, but I was mad they came in at all. I went back home and reread my closing stack. I had a copy of the deed, I had the mortgage, I had a title policy. There was a page in there that said Homeowners Association, yes, but then under it, it listed an association name and a document number, so I drove to the county recorder. If you've never been to a county recorder's office, it's not fancy. You tell them your parcel number and they pull up whatever is recorded against it. I gave them my address and the document number. The employee showed me the original declaration from when the neighborhood was built. It covered Phase 1. Then there was a plan for Phase 2 that was supposed to come under it later. There was a supplemental declaration listed in the table with a note that said pending. Another note said developer dissolved. There was no recorded supplemental for Phase 2. No annexation plat signed and recorded. My lot was in Phase 2. "So my lot isn't in the HOA?" I asked. The employee shrugged. "I can't give legal advice. But I don't see your lot listed on the recorded declaration. It looks like your lot wasn't annexed." I took copies. I got a certified copy of the original declaration and the plat that showed the boundary line. My lot was just outside it. Then I asked about amendments. There was a restated declaration recorded by the board 3 years ago that incorporated all lots in the subdivision, including Phase 2 lots. And there was a signature page signed by the board, but there was no list of owner signatures. In my state, if you want to expand an HOA or change the lots subject to it, you need a vote of the owners who are affected. You also need the owners of the new lots to agree. You can't just record something and call it good. I called the number on the management company letterhead and asked for the manager. I said I wanted copies of the vote, the roll call, the ballots, and the minutes for the restated declaration. I also wanted a complete copy of all rules, all adopted resolutions, and the board's insurance policy. In my state, owners are allowed to inspect all that stuff on request. I figured if they thought I was in the HOA, they had to give it to me. If they didn't, that told me something too. The manager emailed back, "We will provide documents after you are in good standing. You currently have outstanding fines for non-compliance." That made me grin. I forwarded it to a lawyer I found who advertised that he handled HOA nonsense. He called me and said, "They can't condition document inspection on fines, and if your lot isn't subject to the declaration, they have bigger problems." I told him about the keys. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "You said they want keys to your yacht. Is that in their marina?" "No, city marina," I said. "They're saying it's part of an emergency boat program." "Do you mind sending me their policy and the marina contract?" he asked. I emailed both. The city marina lease said stored vessels had to be registered with the marina, have liability insurance, and provide a key or code to marina staff for emergencies. It did not say anything about giving keys to outside third parties. The HOA policy claimed authority over all watercraft owned by residents who use lake access because the lake is part of the community identity. It was a word salad, it wasn't a contract. The lawyer said, "We're going to send them a demand letter. We'll ask them to rescind the violation, confirm they have no authority over your lot or your boat, and stop contacting you. If they keep it up, we'll ask for a declaratory judgment and an injunction." I liked that plan. I also emailed the city marina manager, who I'd met when I picked up my dock key. I asked if he'd ever heard of any HOA being allowed to hold spare keys for city-owned slips. He wrote back a one-liner. "Absolutely not. Only marina staff and emergency services authorized. Please send us the HOA name and we will reach out." 2 days later, the HOA taped another notice to my door. Final notice before legal action. Failure to provide keys has resulted in $650 in fines and continuing. Board has scheduled a hearing. You must appear. Failure to appear will result in an adverse finding. I went to the meeting room at the clubhouse on the posted date and sat in a folding chair. Only a few people were there. The president and the treasurer were up front with a binder. The secretary had a laptop. When they called my name, I stood up and said, "Before we start, I have a question. Please tell me the exact section number in the recorded covenants that says you can require keys to my house." The treasurer flipped pages. The president said, "You agreed to association rules when you bought the home." "I asked for the section in the recorded covenants," I said. "Not an internal rule. It's in the rules which are adopted by the board, which we are allowed to do by the covenants," the president said. "It's all in here." The secretary added, "Owners voted on the restated declaration. It's binding." "Then you have the signatures?" I asked. "Because the county recorder didn't have a list," the president frowned. "We don't have to show you anything until you pay your fines." "So you don't have owner signatures for the restated declaration," I said. "And you can't point to any recorded section that says you can demand keys to my house or my boat." "This is an appeal hearing," the treasurer said. "Do you want to appeal or not?" "I'm appealing the entire thing on jurisdiction. You don't have any over my lot," I said. "Also, stay away from my boat. It's not yours." They voted. 3 hands went up. They said, "Appeal denied, fines stand. Each day adds another $50. I got up. I said, "Okay. See you in court." Then I walked out. The next day, a neighbor sent me a screenshot from the neighborhood Facebook group. The president had posted a long note about a new owner who was endangering the community by refusing emergency access and parking an oversized trailer. The post made it obvious it was me. It named my street. It said I was planning to rent out my vacation home without proper oversight. It asked people to report any suspicious activity to the board. That last line really ticked me off. I'd set up my vacation house as a short-term rental for a few weekends a month. I kept it up to code, with permits and taxes paid. I had no problem with rules in that city. It was nowhere near here. The board telling people to report suspicious activity there made it sound like I was doing something wrong. People started commenting things like ban rentals and call code enforcement. Someone asked for the address. The president sent it in a private comment. How do I know? Because they sent it to someone who sent it to me. I sent everything to my lawyer. We sent the demand letter. It said my lot was not subject to the recorded declaration and never had been. It said the restated declaration was void as to my lot because it lacked required owner approval and it tried to annex property without consent. It said their key policy conflicted with the covenants anyway, which only allowed inspection of common areas, not private homes. It said their policy on boat keys had no basis because they had no control over the marina. It also said they had posted false statements about me in a public forum that hurt my vacation rental business. He gave them 10 days to retract and fix it. They replied with a notice of intent to lien for the fines. They gave me 30 days to cure. They also sent a letter addressed to the marina asking them to add the HOA as an authorized party for my slip, and they attached an authorization form that had my name on it. It was obviously filled out by them. They signed it on behalf of owner. The marina manager forwarded that to me with a "you should see this" note. Then he emailed the board and CC'd me and said, "Do not attempt to represent slip holders. This is a city facility. We have notified the city legal department." It escalated fast. The board hired a lawyer. Their lawyer sent a letter to mine that basically said, "We believe we have jurisdiction over all homes in the neighborhood under our restated declaration, and we have a legitimate community safety interest in our key program." My lawyer said, "They just wrote me the best opening line for a lawsuit." So we filed. The complaint wasn't dramatic, it was straight. It asked for a declaratory judgment that my property is not subject to any covenants or rules or fines imposed by the HOA, and that the HOA has no authority to demand access or keys to my home or boats. It asked for an injunction to stop them from trespassing or pretending to have authority over my boat. It also asked for money damages for defamation and for tortious interference with my vacation rental contracts. We added a claim for conversion because they had a vendor clamp my trailer one day when it was in my driveway, and I had to pay the vendor $120 to take it off. I kept the receipt. When the process server handed the president the lawsuit, I guess they got mad. They posted another Facebook message saying they would not be bullied by a few bad actors and that we will always put safety first. Then they started putting notices on my door daily. Trash can visible. Weeds and cracks. Mailbox needs paint. I took photos of each one with timestamps. I didn't live under their rules, but I kept my place nice anyway. I wasn't going to give them easy targets. One afternoon, while I was in my garage, I heard voices by the side gate. I looked at my camera feed. 2 board members were trying the latch. I went out. "Can I help you?" "We need to measure your side yard for fence compliance," one said. "You're trespassing." I said. "Step away from the gate." They didn't. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency line. I told the dispatcher that 2 people were trying to enter my fenced yard and refusing to leave. A patrol car came by and the officer asked for names. The board members tried to make it sound like they had authority. The officer said, "This is private property. If you're not invited, you need to leave." They argued. The officer said the magic words, "Do you want to press charges for trespass?" I said yes. The officer took a report. He didn't haul them away, but he sent a clear message. They left red-faced. It was around then that neighbors started knocking on my door. They told me stories. Keys that went missing for a while and then turned up in the office with no explanation. A board inspection that found a single candle in a bedroom and wrote a warning. A storm season where the board moved kayaks from yards and stacked them in the clubhouse, and one kayaker said his new paddleboard never came back. People had grumbled, but most paid fines to keep peace. One neighbor told me they thought I was nuts to fight, but they hoped I'd win. Another slipped me a manila envelope with photocopies of meeting minutes from 2 years ago. The minutes showed a vote that passed the emergency key policy. It also showed only 3 owners present, all board members. The secretary wrote, "No general members attended." They called it ratification. My lawyer loved that envelope. He sent a discovery request to the HOA lawyer asking for everything. The restated declaration, the ballots from when it was adopted, the sign-in sheets for the meeting, the notices sent to owners, the management agreement, any complaints about the key program, insurance claims, bank statements. He asked for the Facebook posts, including deleted ones. The HOA lawyer sent back a thin stack. No ballots, no sign-in sheets, no evidence of notice to owners. He attached a PDF of the restated declaration signed by the board and a notary. He said owners assented by living in the community. That line was a gift. We set a hearing to get a temporary injunction to stop them from messing with my boat and my house while the case played out. The judge asked, "Do they have a lien?" The HOA lawyer waved a piece of paper. The judge asked if it was recorded. It wasn't. The judge asked the HOA lawyer, "Is the property subject to a recorded declaration?" The HOA lawyer said, "Yes, Your Honor, the restated declaration was recorded." The judge held up a hand. "Recorded, but was it approved as required by the prior covenants and state law?" The HOA lawyer said, "We believe so." The judge looked at my lawyer. He handed up the original plat and declaration. He pointed to the legal description. He handed up the county record that showed no supplemental declaration and no signature pages. The judge said, "All right, I'm going to grant the temporary injunction. The HOA is restrained from entering the plaintiff's property or attempting to access his boat or contacting the marina." That injunction was like flipping a switch. The board went quiet for a week. Then the treasurer sent a newsletter saying the court was mistaken and "we will prevail at trial." At that point, the city's legal department sent a letter to the HOA telling them to stop pretending to manage city marina access. They CC'd the city council and the police chief. The letter said any further attempt to interfere with marina operations would result in referral to law enforcement for impersonation or fraud. On the vacation house side, the damage was done. Because of the Facebook mess, 2 bookings canceled. One said, "We saw a post that the neighborhood doesn't allow rentals. I showed them my permits, but they still canceled. That cost me over $1,000. My lawyer added that to the damages. The HOA lawyer tried to get the defamation claim thrown out. He said the president had expressed an opinion about safety. The judge didn't buy it for the parts where the president stated as fact that my vacation rental was illegal and that I was in violation of community policy. When the judge asked what policy governed my vacation house 3 hours away, the HOA lawyer said, "We have a reciprocal understanding with the sister community." There was no paper to back that. The judge let the defamation claim stay. Discovery got worse for the board. The management company produced bank statements that showed reimbursements to board members for meals and gas that didn't match any community event. There were purchases of power tools on the HOA card that were supposedly for maintenance, but maintenance was contracted out. The insurance agent wrote that the carrier had not been told the HOA held keys to homes and was conducting inspections. There was no coverage for that. If something had gone wrong, they would have been personally on the hook. The cherry on top was the treasurer's email to the president saying, "We should push keys harder this season. People fall in line when we fine." The subject was compliance. The email was forwarded by mistake to the management company and got pulled into discovery. The HOA approached my lawyer with a settlement offer. They would rescind the fines and agree not to demand keys from me. They wanted me to drop the defamation and conversion claims and agree to keep the rest of the case private. I said no. This wasn't just about me at that point. I wanted a clear order that they had no authority over my lot. I wanted a written retraction so the vacation rental post would stop. I wanted them to pay my legal fees because they dragged me through this. We went to trial. It wasn't dramatic like TV, but it was satisfying. The courtroom was small. A few neighbors sat in the back. The judge listened for a day and a half. My lawyer walked through the chain of title. He put up the plat on a screen and showed the lines. He put up the declaration for Phase 1 and showed that there was no supplemental for Phase 2. He read the clause in the original covenants that said amendments required a vote of 2/3 of owners and that expansion to new lots required the consent of those owners. He showed that the restated declaration was signed only by the board and recorded without any owner vote. Then he put the emergency key policy up and asked the president, "Where in the recorded covenants did you find authority to demand keys to private homes?" The president said, "We adopted rules. We had a vote at a meeting." "How many owners attended?" my lawyer asked. "3 board members and the secretary," the president said. "So, 4 board members?" my lawyer said. "There were proxies," the president said. "People told us they supported it." "Do you have those proxies?" my lawyer asked. The president looked at the HOA lawyer. The HOA lawyer said, "They were informal." The judge raised an eyebrow. Then my lawyer asked why the HOA claimed their authority extended to my vacation house. The president said, "Owners need oversight if they are renting to strangers." "In another county?" my lawyer asked. "Under a completely different set of laws? With no common ownership or management?" "It's about safety," the president said. "For who?" my lawyer asked. No answer. We brought in the marina manager as a witness. He testified that the city did not authorize any HOA to manage keys for slip holders and that the HOA had sent them a form with my name on it authorizing them to hold my keys. He pointed to the signature line. He said, "This is not the owner's signature, it was attempted fraud." The judge frowned. The HOA lawyer said the board thought it was allowed. That didn't land well. We had screenshots of the Facebook posts and the cancellations for my vacation house. The judge asked the HOA lawyer if the president had investigated whether I had permits or whether the HOA had any jurisdiction over that house before telling people to report me. The HOA lawyer said it was a good faith post. The judge said it was false. The HOA tried to claim that even if they were wrong on jurisdiction, my case didn't justify damages. My lawyer pointed to the trailer clamp, the trespass, the business cancellations, the time spent dealing with notices, and my attorney bills. He also pointed to the risk the HOA created by holding keys without insurance. He said, "They set up a shadow enforcement scheme with no legal basis. They passed themselves off as authorities over a city marina. They published false claims about a business in another county. They didn't just make a mistake, they doubled down." The judge ruled a week later. The order was plain. The court declared that my lot was not subject to the association's recorded declaration or the restated declaration. The court declared that the restated declaration was not valid as to any lots not originally subject to the declaration unless approved by those owners as required by law, and there was no evidence of that. The court enjoined the HOA from enforcing any rules or fines against me, entering my property, or contacting the marina regarding my boat. The court ordered the HOA to remove and retract all social media posts and notices naming me or my address and stating that I was in violation of any community policy as to my vacation house, and to issue a written statement that they had no jurisdiction over that property. The court awarded me damages for the trailer clamp, for the lost bookings, and for the trespass. The court also awarded me my attorney's fees because the association acted in bad faith by recording and attempting to enforce a restated declaration without proper approval, and by continuing to fine me after I put them on notice of the jurisdiction issue. When I read the last paragraph aloud at my kitchen table, I felt the weight drop off. It's not that I wanted to go to war with neighbors. I like being friendly. I wave. I help jumpstart cars. I watch packages when people are out. But I wasn't going to let a board run a little fiefdom out of my house and my boat. The aftermath was awkward for a while. The HOA sent a letter to all owners and residents that said, "We are correcting an oversight in our records. Some homes in Phase 2 are not currently subject to the declaration. Some." The letter didn't mention the lawsuit, it didn't mention the retraction, but they posted the retraction on the Facebook page. "We previously stated that a certain owner was violating our policy by renting a home in another city. This was incorrect. We have no jurisdiction over that property. We regret the confusion." It wasn't the apology I would write, but it did what it needed to do. I sent the link to the guests who had canceled. One rebooked later. The president resigned. The treasurer took time for family. The management company put out a call for board volunteers. A few reasonable neighbors stepped up and ran unopposed. I went to the next open meeting and sat in the back. The new board had a real lawyer present. He started by saying, "We are going to fix this. We will not demand keys to private homes. We will not adopt policies that go beyond the covenants. We will follow the law." He didn't look at me, but he knew I was there. People lined up to ask about refunds for fines. The new board said they would review. They sent out a notice saying if you had been fined under the key policy or had your home inspected, you could submit for a refund. They didn't promise everything, but they did something. That's more than I expected. Neighbors I hadn't even met before knocked on my door and thanked me. One said, "I never knew I could say no. I thought all this was normal. I told them to check their deeds and to keep copies of whatever they signed. I told them to vote for people who don't want to collect power they don't have." On the marina side, the city council passed a motion that said only marina staff and emergency services could hold keys for slip holders, period. They sent out a bulletin. I printed it and put it in my boat binder. I keep my boat keys on my own ring. If a storm comes, I move my boat. If I can't, the marina knows how to reach me. That's the deal. About 3 months after the final order, the HOA insurance carrier dumped them. They had to find a new policy at a higher rate. I heard that happened because they forgot to disclose they had been holding keys to homes. The new board was mad about that, but they didn't blame me. They blamed the past board for lying. I stayed out of it. I didn't run for the board. I didn't want a taste of that power. I just wanted to sit on my porch and hear the boats and the kids riding bikes. There's one more piece. The HOA lawyers sent us a check for fees and damages, but it was short for the fees by a couple $1,000s. My lawyer sent a reminder that the order said reasonable attorney's fees, and we had filed a bill of costs. The HOA lawyer said, "Let's not fight over scraps." My lawyer said, "We'll file a motion if needed." The HOA paid the rest. It took another month, but they learned to follow orders. It was a small thing, but it mattered to me because the entire point was that they don't get to decide what they can and can't do based on how they feel that day. When I think back to the very first day and that binder with "We're a community family," I still feel a little heat. A family doesn't demand your house key. A family doesn't try to sneak a signature to get your boat keys. A family doesn't tell people to report your out-of-town rental like you're running a scam. But a community can be something else, if the people in it choose to be normal. It was nice to see normal show up after all that mess. There's a small group that still think the old board was right. They whisper about me at the clubhouse sometimes. One of them told me, "You made it harder for us to keep the neighborhood safe." I told them, "If you want to keep it safe, start a CPR class or organize a storm prep list. Don't ask people for control of their doors and their boats." They shook their head and walked away. That's fine. Not everyone will agree. I'm okay with that. On a Saturday not long ago, I took my boat out at sunrise. The air was calm. I drank coffee from a thermos and watched the birds scoop low and grab bugs off the surface. When I got back, the marina manager waved and said, "Glad that's over." I said, "Me too." He said, "You know they tried to tell me again they had an emergency program last year?" I said, "They won't try again." He grinned. "Not with your judge's order on my wall." He pointed to the office. He framed the line that said the HOA was restrained from contacting the marina. That made me laugh. At home, I locked my own door with my own key. I clipped my boat keys onto the hook in the kitchen. The only key I gave anyone is the one in the little lockbox for my guests at the vacation house, in that other city with that city's rules. That city knows me. The neighbors there know me. If a pipe bursts or a smoke alarm chirps, my cleaner calls me. No board touches it. No one stands at my side gate and tries the latch. That chapter is closed. And yeah, the title sounds like clickbait. HOA wanted keys to my yacht and my vacation house. But that's what happened. They asked, they demanded, they fined, they tried to take more control than they had because the last few people let them. When someone finally said no and meant it, they got exposed. That's the part I don't want people to miss. If it doesn't feel right and you're pretty sure it isn't legal, check your documents. Ask for the recorded stuff. Don't take a binder as law just because it has a logo on it, and if a board ever asks for a key to your house or your boat for safety, remember my story and keep your key right where it belongs. Anyway, thank you for watching.